Hi Mika, how are you?
Hi, Ticket.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to the first series of the Business Continuity series, right? The video that we have come together as part of the Business Continuity Chapter. So without much further ado, let me just go direct. Right? So first of all, let me just introduce ourselves here. So who we have here is Ticket. Right? Ticket is a committee member of the Business Continuity Chapter within SCS. Right? He has been doing BCT for more than 20 years already. So he's the Managing Director of Organization Resilience Management Private Limited.
Hi everybody.
For myself, my name is Mika. I'm the current President of the Business Continuity Chapter, the BCC for short within SCS. And I'm an employee of Bank of New York Mellon. So let me just start off by giving an overview of the topics that we hope to cover in this series today. Firstly, we'll briefly mention about the Singapore DORSCON alert level. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about the DORSCON level. So let us start off with that because I think for Singapore's context, that is where our basis for our planning will begin. Specifically for this topic, I think what is on a lot of our minds right now is the workforce segregation or social distancing. So we'll touch a little bit on that. How sustainable is continuing with the split operation? And last but not least, we'll share, Ticket will share with us some of the industry best practices and considerations for segregation. Okay. So maybe for the next slide onwards, I will just hand over to Ticket to give us a brief introduction as to what this Singapore DORSCON alert level is. So Ticket, over to you.
Right, thanks Mika. Okay, I think we all know that after the SARS in 2003 and Singapore, the MOH have actually come up with the DORSCON alert level that is from the green, yellow, orange and red that will actually prepare us to actually get through our pandemic preparedness and so on. And I think this DORSCON alert level coming very useful now. So we all know that the green is actually for us to make sure that we actually prepare all the pandemic plan for the last few years. And I think right now it's time for us to use it right now. So we all know that the DORSCON alert level was actually raised from yellow to orange on the 7th of February. So with this orange right now, most organizations who had a pandemic plan in place would know what to react, what to respond to right now. Now, also to share a little bit on the lesson that we learned from the past on what we can actually use it to help us in this COVID-19. Now, I was personally involved in SARS in 2003 when I was the managing the Business Continuity Center, where I actually see through almost 400 employees actually split team operation to our facilities and so on. So I think that is the slide you can see that in 2003 as well as 2009 when H1N1 occurred. And I remember when the DORSCON alert level was actually being formed and during the H1N1 we saw that the yellow DORSCON was actually raised to orange DORSCON within a day. But that doesn't cause much panic because most companies have a plan. So most companies at that time will be able to react when DORSCON alert level was raised to orange. So when I look at COVID-19, where again when the government raised the alert level to orange, most companies were quite well prepared. Now also learned that there are some differences between SARS and COVID-19, especially during the SARS and H1, the temperature screening was actually more tightened and more kind of the tightened and so on because we understand SARS is actually transmitted through air and also through droplets and so on. So most organizations actually tighten the temperature screening like the full donning with N95 masks and so on. Whereas for COVID-19, we know that it's through droplets. So most of the temperature screening right now are using surgical masks if need to and so on. Okay, so but more important is that the temperature screening of whoever we need to sanitize their hands more regularly. That is something, the lesson that we learned that we're putting in place today. Yeah. So I think for the planning for COVID-19, if we see that the COVID-19 is very much the family of the coronavirus, like the SARS and the MERS. They belong to the same family of viruses. But one point to take note is during the SARS, we understand the incubation period is like the 4 to 6 days. Unlike COVID-19, it's about 14 days. Now with these 14 days, the business continuity plan and planning plan will need to tailor a little bit to make sure that we are still able to continue our critical services due to the longer duration or the incubation. Now, What I can say is that the BCM plan and pandemic plan are still effective. Okay, now, but we just need to tailor a little bit to make sure that critical services can be still continue due to the longer duration of the so-called incubation. I think what we're worried more is that with the wider kind of spread, the risk of staff being infected, the possibility of being infected could be higher. So the risk of staff being isolated and quarantined for a longer period of 14 days will be there. And when they're being quarantined or whatever, we also worry that facilities may also be closed. I mean, we saw a few cases where there are cases that the staff are being affected. Many of the facilities are being closed for cleaning, disinfect, and so on. So this is something that we need to tailor for that.
Thanks. Okay. So just a quick recap, right, of
Yep.
facts that we know so far. Right? In Singapore, the first case was reported 23rd Jan. Right?
Yeah, that was just before Chinese New Year.
And as of yesterday, there were more than 100 confirmed cases globally, with about more than 80,000 deaths reported worldwide.
Correct.
In Singapore, based on yesterday's figures, 178
Right.
confirmed cases. Though on the bright side, 96 of them have already recovered. Right? So I think COVID-19 is a problem affecting people. Unlike the vanilla BCP, we are more planning about premises, if there were outage of premises, fire.
Exactly,
like
right.
that, right? So ITDR plan is also different because they look at machines, right? If a hard disk crash, what do we do? But for COVID-19, the planning is slightly different. So perhaps maybe you could share with us, where exactly do you think this sort of plan for COVID-19 would fall into ideally?
Great. So you mentioned about business continuity and IT disaster recovery planning. Now, if you look at the COVID-19, it's not about power outages, it's not about IT outages and so on. So the critical IT system will still be there. So I think what's more important for the so-called pandemic plan right now, because I think WHO has just announced it as a pandemic. So given the consideration that the IT system will still be there, but more important right now is about people. It's how we spread the people to different locations and able to get connected to all the critical system in order to make sure that all the critical services are still be able to continue. I think the other thing more important is that with this COVID-19, more important is that what do we need to include in the pandemic plan, right? So I think very important part is that number one is that awareness to all staff is very important, especially on the advisory guideline, as well as the social responsibility to all the staff. What are such as daily temperature taking twice a day is important to make sure that whoever is sick or unwell do not report to office in order to have this social responsibility. Do consult a doctor when you're not feeling well. Now, in order also to make sure that we need to put in the temperature screening, I take this as the first line of defense to make sure that whoever personnel comes in are properly screened before they're allowed to access to the facility. That is number one. Now, when I look at the temperature screening, just by sharing, when I go travel to number of offices, I realize that there are many temperature screening. But the questions to me, which I'm a bit concerned, I'm a bit worried, are we doing the temperature screening correctly? That's my concern. I think for me is that number one, whenever the visitors comes in, we do not know whether their hands are clean or not. So I always urge the temperature screening to make sure when they comes in, number one, before they fill out any travel declaration form, please sanitize the hand first. Once they sanitize the hands, then they will fill out the travel declaration form. The point here is that the temperature screening officer will now need to look thoroughly what has been declared in the travel declaration form, and also to look out for any flu-like symptoms before I take the temperature reading. Now, the other point to take note is that out of some kind of concerns, when I went to all these number of places, my temperature reading was like 32 degrees, 33 degrees, which I'm not sure it seems that is the temperature reading correct. So sometimes when I already ask the security, hey, I think something may not be correct with the thermometers. I think normal body temperature should be about 36 something rather than 32, 33. I think it's something that as a first line of defense, we need to be very clear when do the temperature screening. So maybe I will urge everybody, go through the process to make sure all the thermometers are correctly calibrated so that we can actually capture the correct reading in order to enforce our first line of defense. This is one of the concerns that I have, Mika. So maybe let me just continue again that some of the information to be included in the pandemic plan right now is like, do we actually have the office segregation plan to minimize and also prevent contacts among the staff in the office? Now, where I'm coming from, when we look at a number of cases, when one of the staff are being affected, the whole floor of 300 over people or whatever has to be isolated for the next 14 days. Now, take note, if we have few hundred staff being evacuated and need to be isolated, there's no way, and it's going to be very difficult for us to continue all the critical services. Now, the other way to look at it is that if we have the office segregation plan, we are able to segregate the staff from different departments so that when anyone being infected, we will only be able to isolate that group of people rather than the whole floor of the people. Right, Mika? Now, I think on top of that, what we practiced during the SARS, we actually have planned for staggered working hour for staff. So staff can come in like 8:30, 9:30. In this way, they also like minimize the contacts as well. And the other thing that what we do is that we actually plan for staggered hour for lunch. Even for lunchtime, we tell them to go to different places for lunch so that they will not actually concentrate in one location for lunch. In this way, you will be able to do the segregation and also social distance among each other. Of course, the other thing is that we need them to continue the critical services. So what we do, we have this thing called split team operations. Okay, and in order to continue the critical services as per what we actually identified in the business continuity plan. And of course, we also know that when any staff is infected, we may have the possible of high absenteeism. We must be able to know what are the services, I call it non-critical services, that can be discontinued. The other way I look at it is that we should have a pandemic task force. When everything's happened, the pandemic task force will be able to respond and seek advice from the BCN steering committee when necessary.
Yeah, it's very true about the thermometer, because just a few weeks ago, my wife and I were at a certain location, I won't mention where, went through the temperature screening. First thing they took the temperature of my wife, they said, oh, very high, it's like 39 point something degrees.
Oh no.
Twice, still the same. But we just came out from the car park, right? So there were another officer there that did the temperature screening, took the temperature. Oh, it's normal. It was about 36.9. Right? So I think this is just another example where, at the front line, when people are taking temperature, they need to have more than one thermometer, just in case one thermometer is malfunctioning. And I think this is important for that.
You got a point there, Mika. So what happened is that there was one place that I went, they took my temperature, it was like 24.5. And they still allowed me to go because they said you're below 38. So my concern right now is that since the temperature screening is the first line of defense, I think it's very important to educate the temperature screening officers to make sure to look out for what is the correct symptoms before you allow the visitor to go in. And just to share a little bit is that when I went to another site, they actually asked me to bend down my head at the temperature screening in this way, so they can actually put the thermometer over my head. Oh my God, I think this may not be the proper way of doing it. So therefore, in order to tighten the first line of defense, we need to make sure all the temperature screening are correct.
Yep, very true. Okay. So now maybe let's move into workforce segregation.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, some people call it workforce segregation, some call it split operations. I think the bottom line, the objective is the same, that we try to minimize the risk of cross-infecting each other within the department. So perhaps maybe you can share a little bit some thoughts about how should businesses implement workforce segregation and some of the considerations they should bear in mind.
Very good question, Mika. I think we saw over the news that when there's a confirmed case in the office, they literally shut down the whole floor and get all the staff to be isolated for the 40 days, which is the major concern for us on how can we actually continue our critical services. Now, I actually look back at what we've done during SARS, which I find that is very useful. So I think we should leverage on what we have learned to put in place to make sure that how do we make sure our workforce segregation and split operation are effective. Now, when you look at the chart, the slide that I have, is how we actually implement the office segregation and social distance. For example, when you look at the slide, I have the department A, B, C, and so on, as well as D, E, F in different colors and so on. So what we do, we actually isolate the staff in A, B, and C and the rest, so that they don't actually cross over to the other departments. So we literally cordon off, and we also identified that where should be the corridor, where should be the washroom designated for the use of this grouping of the departments. In this way, we are literally splitting them up and so on. So whenever they work in the offices over there, they will not come into contact and so on. That's why we also talk about the staggered working hours and staggered lunch, so that when they come to office or when they go for lunch, they also do not meet each other. Okay, so this is what, and we actually come to the worst case, we actually designated the hawker centers, the coffee shop, where to go to, so they do not meet at the common eating place and so on. This is what we do. So we also emphasize on social distancing. That means even though you don't meet in the office, we also want to make sure after the meetings, after work, they do not go to elsewhere to meet together, for example, for a movie or whatever. So we literally make sure that it's true up, being cordoned off, and social distancing and so on.
Okay. Yes, very, very true indeed. So in terms of splitting ops, right? Some people can split 2 ways, 3 ways. You know, in your experience with your customers and through the years, what sort of teams? I mean, what sort of model do you find that is actually quite useful for the organizations?
Okay, I think since SARS, in the pandemic plan, most organizations were planned for Team A and Team B. So where they actually work in the office, the Team B will actually work at the alternate site. But with the advanced technologies today, with what happened during the SARS and so on, we can actually work in 3 ways as well. But let me talk about the 2 ways first. So most teams that are running the critical services, if the data are confidential, whatever, they can just split the team into Team A and Team B, okay, where they can actually work in the office and the other half actually work in the alternate site. Okay, or alternatively, Team A can work in the office and Team B can work in the home. Right, these are some of the back-end processes which they can actually work from home. Now, I also mentioned with the advanced technologies, we can just split the team in 3 ways today, where the Team A will continue to function in the office, Team B at home, and Team C actually at the alternate site. Okay, now, when we split the team, we also need to make sure we split the departments or team into smaller groups so that these 2 teams, they have the backup plan of each other, they share the same competency, they can actually be split up and so on. Okay, now, if the teams are required, now some organizations, because of the longer duration right now, as we do not know how long will the COVID-19 take. So if we need to rotate the split operations, it means it can be 1 week I work from home, 1 week I work from office, that we can actually rotate. But however, there's still a possible risk because when you split the team and rotate, we need to make sure that when we go back to the office a week later, we need to make sure the facilities are clean and disinfect before the next team come over. Otherwise, they may catch the virus and both teams may be isolated at the same time.
So I guess the next question is, because I mean our intended audience, there could be people from SME, slightly bigger organizations, different sizes, from about 10 to maybe in the hundreds. So from a split, in terms of splitting operations, because I mean, to be frank, it may not be for every organization, especially those that are smaller, right?
Correct.
So what are the considerations you think that, or what does an organization actually need before they can effectively do a split ops?
Okay, very good question again, Mika. So for smaller organizations, very important is that if we have done our business impact analysis in a BCM, we'll probably be able to understand what are the critical services that we can actually continue. This allows the smaller organization to spread and continue. Now, leveraging on the cloud services today, I think most SME, most of the critical data are actually on the cloud. So when they spread the operation, they're still able to continue the services and so on. Now, not only that they continue, including the communication across the different staff and so on, again, we can still leverage on all the technologies today rather than meeting them and so on. So in this way, I'm able to work from home or anywhere that you want, and also be able to maintain the communication among the staff as well as the customers and so on.
Yeah. I think one of the benefits for technology, if I compare with what happened during the SARS period, is the broadband.
Yes.
I think during the SARS period, in fact, I can't remember how was the speed for internet. Right now, getting 1 gig or something at home is not really a problem. So
right.
I think that has definitely helped in terms of enabling people to work from home. On the segregation, I mean, just to share also when we were working with people, right? Sometimes there was once I asked a person, oh, you seem to be like the only person covering this function. So what will happen to you what will happen to the organization if, let's say, you are unavailable? And the answer I got is, only God knows. So I think, to be honest, that's not the plan.
I think that is not a BCM plan.
Yeah. So people have to really think about it, who can back them up if they are unavailable, especially during this period.
No, Mika, if you mention that, is that whether should we rely on a single star? I think that's where business continuity plan comes in. When we look at the single star department, it becomes a major risk in the business continuity planning. Yep. So if the company had done their business continuity, they would have known the risks. So they make sure that they have an alternate person who are well trained and competent to take over. That is about the effectiveness of the BCN. So therefore, pandemic plan, security operation depend a lot on how do we plan in the business continuity plan as well.
Yep, very true. They must think holistically for the organization.
Yeah, we cannot depend on the Singapore of failure. So we need to have a good plan in place so that we can actually split the team. When I say split the team, it's about the competent people to be able to continue the businesses and so on.
Yep. Okay. So my next question, I guess, is for proper staff distancing, right? What are any tips that you could give for that?
Yeah, I always go back to business continuity planning on how we analyze and assess the needs, the competence that we can actually continue our business and so on. I think very important part is that number one is that we depend on staff. Do we have sufficient and competent staff coverage when such things occur, so that we can just have this thing called split operation effectively? Now, in addition, when we split team, do we have our SOP, I call it standard operating procedure, in terms of the work processes and so on, that we have been practiced, we have been trained, so that we can ensure that the consistent steps are continued, even though we are split operation in elsewhere. Now, the other part is that when we split team from home, very important part, like what you mentioned, do we have sufficient IT resources? Do we have sufficient bandwidth? Do we have sufficient access? Do we have sufficient speed in terms of the network connectivity in order to continue our processes and so on? I think these are some of the considerations that we need to put in place.
Okay, sure. So we'll touch a bit on social distancing, what is required to work from home, right? From a guidelines perspective, right, for staff social distancing, besides coming in at different times, not going for lunch together and all that, are there any other tips that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think you mentioned that. I think it's what are the guidelines probably for like proper staff social distancing and so on. As we mentioned it, when we split team within the same department, it should be into at least some smaller teams with competent team and so on. And I also mentioned very clearly that the team members must be competent to carry out at least the critical services independently when they're being splitted. So we also mentioned that staff should not be met during the segregation period and so on. I think there's something that I will talk about social responsibilities. Where we've been splitted, I think very clear that we will not meet and so on. I think this is something basic that even our ministers has mentioned that try to be social responsible, because if anything that we don't follow, we may actually get ourselves into the troubles again. Actually, to me, it's very important is the awareness. We have to keep communication clear and open, keep communicating about social responsibilities and so on. I think this will actually help.
So, maybe based on your experience working with different organizations and so far, what are some of the challenges you have come across that you heard of, right? Besides people, I mean, in terms of when they carry out split ops, what are some of the real problems that you have heard from people on the ground?
Okay, good. In fact, I have been talking to a number of people and so on. How do they feel when there's a split operation, especially those that work from home? The younger people will tell me it's very boring staying at home. So they couldn't stay at home and so on. So they were asking when can they go back to the office and so on. Where they find that the office are more lively, especially the younger generations. For the older generation, wow, they love it. Wow, I don't mind staying at home and so on. So I think we need to set an expectation, because this COVID-19 is here to stay for a longer period. How do we manage this expectation and so on? I think that's very important. Of course, we also want to make sure that when we split operation, we ask about, do we have adequate staff for split operations? Especially this is a longer period right now. So how do we split and so on? The other important part is that our staff be trained. That's why we're emphasizing, have staff been cross-trained, even though when we split, are they able to execute a job effectively? And some of the challenges I face today is that a number of them, they lack of a secondary site, or they call it the alternate office and so on. So right now they're actually looking for sites and so on to make sure they're able to split the operation to continue the job and so on. If not, then they're going to rely on working from home and so on. Okay, but take note that this is a longer period. How do we manage expectation? So for me, the challenges is really keep the communication going on to make sure that what are the needs that the staff may need, wherever they work from home or wherever they work from the alternate sites and so on. Now, during the SARS, I remember nobody knows how long will they stay in the alternate office. When I was there, I'm managing it. So they stay there for almost 2 months. So, but I can see that the welfares are there, and I see that the HQ actually deliver a lot like the snacks, biscuits, drinks over to them to make sure the staff are welfare are being taken care of. They also look into arranging charter buses, to pick them up from the MRT station and so on, to transport them to the alternate site and so on. I think that these are very good welfare to make sure that staff are continuing to work with a good welfare in the alternate site and so on.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I think in the interest of time, maybe I'll just have 2 more questions
Sure.
for you. Firstly, the critical success factor for social distancing, I mean for splitting of ops, right? In your mind and in your experience, what you've really seen on the ground, right? What are some of the key critical success factors that you would say for a successful split ops?
Sure. Okay, I have this thing called failure to plan is preparing to fail. That is the critical success factor is important, is that how much have we done for BCM and pandemic plan exercises and so on. I think all of us has been practicing the plans and so on. Okay, so hang on. So important part is that as we do the planning for BCM plan is that we need to make sure that we keep testing and testing and testing. Because I think the role and responsibility has actually been assigned during all this planning, be it BCM or whatever. It's the processes that we've been planning, we've been testing and so on. Actually, what I'm saying is that after so many years in SARS and now, the pandemic plan comes to be used today. So I would think that the efforts that we have spent over the last few years on practicing, testing and so on is very useful today. So I find that the critical success factor is that how have we tested? While we tested, when everybody understands their roles and responsibilities, they know that this is the way they're going to function. They know that this is a duration they're going to continue and so on. And also very important part is that with the management support, the welfare and constant communications are there to keep them updated, to keep everybody moving and so on. This will actually allow the continuity of the essential and also the critical services and so on. When I mentioned about critical services, if we cannot show like discontinue some of the non-critical services in order not to stress the staff overloading on some of the non-critical services, this will actually help the organization to ensure the continuity of the critical services.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. Practice or exercising is very important, right? We have seen, at least I have seen over the years, sometimes when things happen, then they start to test their remote access, right? Can they log in? And lo and behold, they find out, oh, my password has expired, so I can't log in. And at that time, when IT is overwhelmed with a lot of requests, they'll be delayed in terms of helping them to reset the passwords and things like that.
Okay. That's why we emphasize a lot on the annual kind of the BCM exercises and so on. I think it is really to build this thing of mindset into everybody to be able to react when this kind of incident occur. I think now with this COVID-19 right now is actually for every company right now, okay, to ensure the effectiveness on the BCM plans.
Yeah, okay, very true. So the last question that I have for you, we've gone through the stage of splitting ops, preparing the plan, splitting ops, now continuing the ops. So I think the $1 million question a lot of people will be asking is, so when do we stop doing the split ops? What are the factors, what are the triggers that we should be looking out before deciding in terms of sort of like bringing the split ops operations to a close?
Yeah, I think this is a question that many people want to know. When am I going to start splitting operation? When am I going back to the office and so on? These are some of the burning questions that everybody's asking. So in order to get life back to normal. So what I can recommend is that constantly look at the MOH website, look at the MOM website, all the advices from them. We will actually look at also the DORSCON alert level, okay, on the situation right now. I think we also look at WHO and where MOH will actually give a guideline of what to do and so on. So do not just overreact anything. Always look at all the advisory guidelines from the relevant authorities and so on, and take cue from there and so on. Okay, so that is where we actually can follow back as a community in order to react with our social responsibility to make sure that we are in place to continue the services until a stage where the MOH or MOL will give direction on when we can step down. When we can step down, we should also mean that the DORSCON level is being controlled. We can actually back to normal.
Yeah, very true. I think you and I agree that we need to rely on government sources. I mean, reliable sources before we make that decision. And in terms of be it the WHO or for our case more relevant to us would be the MOH, right? The
exactly the point.
that
Yes.
The task force would be giving and things like that would guide our decision making.
Right, because what we need is the consistent information from the authorities so that everybody can actually align to the DORSCON alert level and take the advisory guidelines to continue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think we have run out of time already. So, audience, I just hope you have found this session useful. Right. If you have any questions, do write a comment on whether it be Facebook or the media that you're viewing this on. We'll try to respond as best as we can. And also do share the link with your friends or your business associates if you found this session useful. We are planning for another session on crisis management, so we will update on our website, SCS website, when that would be released. Right? So in the meantime, I think I'd like to wish you all the best. Do keep safe in this environment. All right. Till the next time, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.